welcome. And with that, I'm going to bring to the stage our illustrious panelists and guest of honor, the CEO of Eventbrite, Julia Hartz. Oh, does that mean I wasn't so good in the beginning? Julia you have been like the fairy godmother of this space and kind of me. And also, I don't mean to like make you seem like you're old. You're also my friend, because fairy godmother, other than the Whitney Houston version, like she's usually this like.
Oh, I like that. I like the current version. Have you seen the new
No,
Cinderella?
Oh, it's Billy Porter.
Yeah.
So fairy that.
That's a huge compliment. Thank you.
So that's who I was
That's
thinking.
what you meant. Okay,
I was thinking Billy Porter. First of all, where do I find you right now? Where is Julia Hartz, like emotionally, mentally, psycho-spiritually? How many crystals do you have in your bedroom right now? Have they mood bathed?
Well, I'm from Santa Cruz, so I can drop into that at any moment.
So many crystals.
many spiritual flavors. You know, I'm on like there are people that know exactly how I am pretty much every minute of the day are sitting here, so I can't really bullshit it. But I'm like on this wild swinging journey right now. Like it's like one day I feel great and I love working in my guest bedroom, and then the next day I literally want to murder the orchid that I've been working with for the last 19 months in my guest bedroom. So I don't know if anybody else feels that way, but it's like it's the weirdest range of emotions that I have in any given day, sometimes intraday too.
Not if you can empathize and identify with that. I can, definitely.
Yeah.
The orchid is a real thing. It's not like an allegory for something.
It literally is an orchid
It's
that's
an orchid.
been sitting. I at some point had decided to, zhuzh up the room, and this orchid would seem like a great idea. And now the orchid and I have been together for 19 months straight. And it's so weird to be running a company, especially through a harrowing journey that tried to kill it, with the orchid. Like, and then at the end of the day, I'm like, oh, it's just me and the orchid again. I have a family, which is great. But they're on the other side of the door, and I have to, like traverse that. I'm sounding very strange, but it is very odd, isn't it? I mean, at some point, this is so weird to have been doing this for so long. And obviously this is what I very much prefer, but this is also weird too. Like there are people here. This is not the metaverse.
This is not the metaverse. This is real. See, I'm a real person. I think, unless this is the Matrix, and then none of us are real. Wow. Which may be true.
Yeah.
I feel like we all have developed internal conversations and quirks as a way to get through the last year and a half. And whether it's through inanimate objects or just like, I think the other night I was sitting on my bed and I looked up at the light fixture in my bed, and I immediately shot back to some of my early pandemic memories, and I looking up at my light fixture, and it was like this inside joke that I had with myself. You know what I mean? And so like, especially at the beginning where we had to like go home and no one knew what we were gonna do, I feel like there's all these things that bring up those early memories. So I totally get the orchid, and
yeah, the orchid.
I also don't get the orchid because the orchid is your thing.
It is my thing, and somehow it's living in such it's either it is the fourth version of itself and I just don't know it, or it's really, really, really doing great. It's like this resilience,
So take us through those first few moments where you're like, okay, pandemic, okay, I run an in-person events company. Okay, those are not allowed anymore. Like, what were those first few weeks, maybe even months? What did it look and feel like for you? What happened? Well,
we have a real heart connection because it was probably right around the same time, and you were probably thinking the same thoughts. I woke up one morning, or for those of you who don't know, I co-founded the company with my then fiance, now husband. So truly I do sleep with the chairman. So I woke up next to my chairman, which is kind of hot. And I looked at my phone.
I'm like, life goals. I want to do that.
Yeah, it's great. I looked at my phone and shoot, we're recording this.
No, we're not. Oh, we don't have to.
No, it's
No, it's not live.
And that wasn't. But anyways, I look at my phone. CFO's like, it's here. And he's an early riser, a runner. And I was like, oh, it's here. And then I went, oh my God, oh no. And, I looked at I brought up my email, looked at our previous day stats, and it was just like, our growth was like or up to the right. And then it was just like on one day. And from that one day, through a journey of, so the company took 14 years to create to that point. And in 14 days, we've gone down to negative revenue. And our Tableau reports broke, which is our analytics dashboard, because it didn't know how to actually track negative revenue. We were processing more refunds than revenue.
Wow.
And it was both exhilarating, terrifying, shocking. It's like the fog of war kind of. And I remember, one good thing, there are so many good things in this story. So I'm telling you all the bad things first, which are probably fairly obvious. But one great thing about this time was that so many people felt horrible for us that I could pick up the phone and call anyone, any business leader, anybody. I could just pick up and they would pick up the phone. And so I talked to so many incredible business leaders in those first 2 weeks. And I just, I think about it now and I'm like, God, that was really kind of ballsy of me. Like, I don't know what got into me, but I was basically like this mama bear looking at her baby cub that was basically about to die. It was no joke. And so COVID came in like a wrecking ball. And I like to say it was not the one with Miley Cyrus on the top. Like, it was not a fun wrecking ball. This was not a party. And came in one way and went out the other. And we had to act really fast. And that's the second really great thing that happened. This was so black and white. There was no gray. Like, it was not, because from that one day, it was way downhill. And basically what was happening was everything was, the music was literally stopping, and our city was shutting down. Multiple cities were shutting down. Events, every time that the CDC would announce that events were restricted down to, I was just like,
Is that what it looked like? Because I remember for us, it was like, okay, can't do events of over 100. I'm like, bitch, if I get an event with more than 100, I'm lucky. It's like, so that doesn't apply to anything. Events over 50, I'm like, okay, like that's. And then it was like spacing out 6 feet. I'm like, 6 feet. My venue was like, that's gonna be like 6 people.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember we did a double whammy on meth. So it was like a meth task force report and then a film screening on meth. I think that was our last event. Very sad last event to have.
Yeah.
And it was just like, boom, it's over. And then it was just like, it hit me like a ton of bricks. But so is that what it looked like for you, where every time there was a restriction, you just saw cancellation after cancellation?
Ours was just sort of this straight down nosedive. And
damn.
Yeah, like there was no relief. And it felt, I guess, it was just like, I kept thinking, so I'm a very visual thinker, and I kept thinking it felt like the Tower of Terror at California Adventure, like where you just keep dropping and you're like, it's never gonna stop. And we didn't know where the bottom was because we went below the bottom. It was like we were generating negative revenue again, and that's not very sustainable.
I want to ask you one more question on this. I have a lot I want to talk about, so I'm going to try to get through these questions as quickly as I can. But I want to ask you about what the experience of having to be a leader in a moment like that was, because you have all these eyes on you, right? All these employees who are all of a sudden like, oh, this is not good, and like you're the woman on top, you're the person on top. What was it like being a CEO and an employer and a leader through that process?
Well, it came much more naturally than I thought it would. I had been a peacetime. I don't really love the peacetime wartime, but I'm going to use it for a minute just to kind of underscore my point, which was I had been the CEO who had taken the baton from my husband, who had been CEO for 10 years, and I had been running with it for about 5 years, and I had made pretty much every mistake you could possibly make as a first-time CEO, and I felt like all of a sudden the lights all went on and I was ready to like lead in a fierce way. And so something kind of switched for me from like fear hunker down mode to like, oh no, we're not folding up shop after 14 years. Like, are you kidding me? And so, yeah. So
That's what I like to hear.
Yeah. And so I made a spreadsheet, as one does naturally, for every problem in my life. And I still have the spreadsheet and it's pretty magical because it's, and it like honestly makes me cry thinking about the spreadsheet because it's 5 lanes of work that needed to be done. And it was, it was like, stop the bleeding, find more money, help our creators, help, well, above all else, help our brightlings figure out, because we had 1,200 people around the world in 17 different offices that we were going to send home. And I mean, in a lot of places, people hadn't even really started to grasp what was happening. And then, advocate for others, because we also knew that like beyond our customers, there were going to be all these other people that would need our help. And so once we could get our oxygen mask on, we need to go help more people. And underneath those like titles are people's names. And it was about 50 people who just stopped their lives to save the company. And so that's what gets me teary-eyed, and many of them are still at the company, which is pretty incredible, because after having been through that experience, I wouldn't have blamed them to want to go work somewhere else like Zoom, somewhere like not dealing with this. And then everybody just got into formation. And, I think the thing that was hardest for us was, we knew that there was no way we were going to make it out alive if we didn't make some big changes fast. And so I got really centered around that, because Eventbrite is a people-centered company, and I've really prided myself and the team on winning, but also winning and being good people and caring for each other. And that was really the sort of the basis of our entire culture. And I'll never forget when I was the last person out of our San Francisco office, which felt very leadery to me. And I went home, and Kevin had set up a war room in our house with like all these monitors and whiteboards and stuff, which was just about the most romantic thing he could have done. And he had dropped everything to help me. And I'll never forget getting on the call. This is like our first executive staff Zoom call, and everyone was just like, what is happening? People are trying to figure out their internet connection, their lighting, it's like horrible. And I asked the team, knowing what you know about the business, what would you do if you could do it all over again? And we just started riffing, and I think they were expecting the exact opposite. They were expecting me to say, where can we cut? We have to cut. But what ended up happening was that people started dreaming and thinking and sketching, and it was like pretty much within a day, we knew exactly who Eventbrite is. It's back to our roots. We knew exactly what we would take with us, and we knew exactly where the North Star is. And a lot of it was back to like the founding vision. And so the punchline was, we're going to do it all over again, because there's no way that we're going to just go. This is not the end of our story, but we have to make really big changes.
Thanks for taking me into that journey. I mean, I've had the honor of interviewing a lot of leaders in the last few months. I think our first one was Mayor Reed, and hearing what this experience was like for leaders, for people who had a lot of folks looking to them for leadership, has been very inspiring, and no surprise that it's the same with you. Did you see certain kinds of events be more popular than you might have thought during the pandemic? I mean, I remember watching like online drag and being like, didn't think I'd do this. And we hosted, how many, Ram? What did MSCCC in the first 3 months? 120. We hosted 120 events in like 1 month. Oh my God.
Incredible.
Yeah, that was insane. So we like went right into it. We were like, we're doing 4 events a day. We're gonna do went right into it. But did you see certain things come out and actually were like pretty popular during the pandemic on your
Yeah, well,
platform?
I mean, you definitely are just such the, oh, let's talk about you for a second.
No.
You're the most incredible entrepreneur because you have both that adaptability, the ingenuity and the resilience to see an opportunity. And you knew that people were just at home, totally freaked out, but also free. Like we were all of a sudden, all of our plans were canceled. And so to see that and to seize upon that and ram, like what an incredible way to help people through that really, really scary time. We also saw that happen on Eventbrite. So once we looked up from reversing the growth engine and trying to help our creators, stay in business, we figured out that they were already pivoting to online events and that they were taking the same content and engaging their communities in whatever way they could. And it was quite delightful. I mean, some of my favorite stories are like, Daybreaker is this, has anybody been to Daybreaker? It's like an early morning, really, really fun dance party experience. And I would say it had a certain demographic and a certain kind of vibe prior to COVID. And what they started doing was every Saturday, they started hosting Daybreaker virtual family parties. And so all of a sudden you had people showing up with their kids, and every Saturday, and it started to become this like Saturday service, and it was incredible because they went from, a few thousand, I mean, they have a big following, a few thousand people in person to hundreds of thousands of people on every Saturday. And that kind of community explosion is just something that it's hard to fathom.
Yeah, it's true. We did a series, an online series called Meet Team Biden, where I convinced all the senior members of now President Biden's campaign to do weekly one-on-one interviews with me in the months leading up to the election. And we partnered with Now This, which is this online media publication. And there were times where, like, I kid you not, 500,000 people were watching me talk. And afterwards we'd be like, 500,000 people were watching. Like, what does that even look like? It was insane, and we never would have been able to do that before. So there were some kind of weird, not silver linings, but changes that happened.
Well, there was this one event I'll never forget. It was Dr. Ibrahim's Kendi, who was speaking at a local library, and they decided to make it a virtual event instead. And 270,000 people registered. Wow. And I remember it was really one of the first events that exploded in that way. And I remember logging onto the event thinking like, wow, I wonder what they did with that. Like they must have, gotten this huge production, and how incredible is this? It's like two little old ladies sitting there in the local library, and like the production quality was not, fancy. And it was so brilliant. And like what we saw emerge during that time was the first wave was just like connecting through the community that you're a part of, right? Just trying to stay with each other and stay in touch and keep tabs on one another. The second wave was investing in ourselves. Tons of wellness and classes and skills building and, learning a new thing, doing that thing that you always wanted to do, The third was probably like the alcohol wave, where there was a lot of tasting. So once we figured out that we could like ship things, then it was started to become,
and this thing wasn't going to end
and this thing wasn't going to end soon, and then it became about alcohol, and it just kind of so on and so forth. The beautiful thing about what we do is that we make it possible for anyone to sell tickets to any kind of event. And the really great honor that we have is that we get to see these emerging trends, before they become mainstream. We get to kind of get a pulse of what people are doing. And this was on like overdrive. I mean, we ticketed 5 million events last year, the same number of events that we ticketed in the prior year.
Nice.
Because of
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, the human need to connect is a real big thing we got going.
So I have to ask though, I think I know what you're going to say, but I want to ask it anyway. It's not the same. do you feel, because your company is about connection, what do you feel like is lost in an online event?
I mean, so much, and we were saying, or you said you feel like the old folk, I don't know.
I
When
do, I
said,
think I said the Luddite or something.
yeah, like the Luddite or the old timer or something, especially on a day where like Mark Zuckerberg's telling us about the new, about the new universe, which I think does open up opportunities. So I've always thought about this as technology enables what we do. Technology, whether it's mobile, data, social, enables people to find great in real life connections. And we need that. We need to continue to harness the power of technology to be able to be in this room together. What I saw during COVID was, if you don't have that, you still need to be live and you still need to be with people. And so it was a good, both like very, very second class replacement, but also an expansion, right? For our creators, all of a sudden they were expanding to these really large global audiences, or people in different countries were able to all of a sudden experience something that they've never had access to before. So there was this, and there is this democratization. But I mean, if I asked you, Manny, what is one thing you've experienced online in the last week that made an impact on you? Could you tell me?
What's one thing that I experienced online that made an impact on me?
Something you watched, something you heard, something you read online.
Well, can it be digital or does it have to be on the internet? Because I saw Dune and that was amazing. Does that count?
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, fucking seeing Dune.
Okay.
In IMAX.
Oh, no, that was not, that doesn't count. No, it has to be like on.
Nothing, I hate the internet, I really
Okay.
do.
All right, tell me about the first concert you ever went to.
The first concert I ever went to
Yes,
was Phoenix at the Troubadour.
and what did it smell like?
Oh, like beer.
And what did
I was in
what did
ninth,
it feel like?
that was so cool. I was in 9th grade and
Oh,
Phoenix
that's
was
so
still, I was so cool. Phoenix was still not that popular and they were selling their own merch. And my friend Natasha took me and I was just like, and I walked up to Phoenix and I was like, you guys are gonna be so big one day. Like, just believe me. They were like,
Trend
yeah.
spotter.
They're like, yeah, they're in their French accents. They're like, like, just believe me. And I bought their shirt, this black Phoenix shirt from the band. And I still have the shirt in my closet. Like, I still wear it from time to time.
And are you back there right now in the Troubadour? Can you literally feel
All black
what it was
walls,
like?
small
Yeah.
stage, about like 200-person crowd on
Yeah.
Santa Monica Boulevard. Yes.
And I think that is the essence of why live events and in real life experiences are irreplaceable. I think that, I mean, I had made a joke after one of the horrible shows, like one of the Golden Globes that they attempted to do virtual. I was like, and ladies and gentlemen, this is why live events are irreplaceable. But it's just, so that's what we built Eventbrite on. It doesn't mean that we can't support the adjunct of, of virtual events. And certainly we see a lot of our customers who are small business owners or solopreneurs, they're doing both and they're doing both really, really well. And I think that's an awesome future for us to help support them. And so, we passed our judgment on how people connect, but certainly we believe that, in order for us to thrive, we have to be together, and that the mental health crisis of social isolation is just, we're
Major.
just seeing the very beginning of it.
Yeah. So let's go to now. How are you seeing people organize events now? The pandemic is obviously not over, but a lot of folks, there's a lot of good news. There's also a lot of terrible news, but around the country, the wave has crested and it's going down. A lot of people are vaccinated. A lot of cities have lifted a lot of their restrictions and a lot of events are happening. So, but what are you seeing on the back end? Are you seeing a huge rush back to in-person events? Does it kind of depend on the market? Like, what do you see from where
We're
you stand?
seeing, so we're a public company and we just did our quarterly report today.
That's right, you're a public company, I forgot that.
We are a public company, yes, in the public markets. And so I have the stats right off the top of my head. About 90% of the searches on Eventbrite in the last quarter were for in-person events. And so it's really mapping, I think, to what we're seeing with local businesses and e-commerce in general, which is people are starting to search the shop near me versus just the website, which is great. I mean, that's an early indicator that demand is coming back. What we've seen over the last 2 quarters, even through Delta, is it's surging demand. And so when restrictions start easing and media coverage of COVID starts to become less, intense and sad, and deaths fall, people are clamoring to get out, and you start to see the demand rise pretty steeply. Interestingly, though, it's starting to make no sense. I mean, it makes a lot of sense, which is that people are just ready to get on with it. And that's not a statement about anything other than the fact that we're just all really tired of being apart.
I really don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, because in the UK, we're seeing record levels of ticket sales to in-person events, and they're not exactly doing a bang-up job of COVID containment. And then in Australia, where like in Melbourne, which is the most locked down city in the world, we're also hitting record pre-COVID levels. And so it just, I think, it's sort of one of those things where you can't really predict the future, and nor should you, but you have to prepare for anything. And so we just go by that motto. And what we see is that creators are finding really creative and clever ways to get people together safely. And we have so many more tools now than we had even a year ago to gather like this, right? I think that like the level of comfort is just increasingly getting better and better. And I also think that creators, for us, and we call, all sort of people who are selling tickets on Eventbrite, creators, that they're coming up with really novel new ways of gathering and making everyone feel safe about it. And so most of the events on Eventbrite are smaller. I mean, they're on average less than 50 people, less than
Like
40
in general.
on average.
Yeah.
And
Before
so
the pandemic too.
yes,
Okay.
yeah, we're seeing a lot more, so much higher frequency in smaller events. And
Got it.
that's really our bread and butter, which is great.
So so just one kind of additional clarification, just to make sure I have it right. So are you seeing a correlation between when a city relaxes its mask mandate or, kind of loosen restrictions and a surge of events? That is what you're seeing.
Absolutely. It's just gone a little bit off the rails as of late. Like when
It's not bad for you, I guess.
No, it's not bad. I mean, it just doesn't, it's no longer like a great sort of indicator for us in terms of, it's just basically events are coming back everywhere. And so, unless they're illegal, but they're not, and that's in our core countries, we're not seeing that anymore.
This is a bit of a weird question, but I've wondered if you're seeing this. Fewer venues, because we lost a lot of venues in the pandemic. So has that affected the numbers at all, or is it being made up for just like sheer demand and people wanting to gather?
So it's definitely being made up for, and music venues are the last to come back,
right,
for sure, because in order for you to be able to open a venue, you have to many times be at capacity, and that's not, not always possible, or people are slowly reopening. I think that we're going to go through a huge renaissance period. I mean, think about it, like what else are we going to want to do when we're fully in the like endemic state of this nightmare? We're going to want to be out spending the time that we have doing things that we love with other people. I mean, I think just in general, we're redesigning our lives if we're fortunate enough to do that, right? And so
yeah, I mean, sorry to interrupt you.
Oh no.
I agree with you, and I was pretty crestfallen at the Delta thing, and we all were, because it was so horrible. But I remember I was in Provincetown on Memorial Day weekend, and the A House, which has been a gay bar since the 1920s, and it's hosted like Billie Holiday, Ella Fitzgerald, Eartha Kitt. It had been closed for the entirety of COVID, and I was there the night that it reopened. And there was this line of like 500 people. And it was the first time the A House had been open, and all these people, the whole town basically came out for the opening. And I was there, and the feeling was so electric. And they opened the doors and we all ran in and they were playing this amazing disco and everyone was crying and hugging each other and making out. And it was so freaking awesome. I mean, it was like what I imagined the opening of Studio 54 or like being alive during the beginnings of the disco era was like. And it was this unbelievable levity of like, we made it. We literally like got off the freaking Titanic. And that energy was so addictive and wonderful and immersive. And then when the news started coming and the masks became recommended and the masks became required, it was just literally like, and it's funny because my staff has heard me talk about this so much, but it really just fucked with my heart, you know what I mean? Because I'd fully been there, right? And I'm a leader of a much smaller space than you, but it was really hard for me to keep a happy face this whole time and like tell people it was gonna be okay and figure it out. And so I was really relieved, and I think a lot of small business owners and employers probably feel like I can finally take the mask off and just actually be happy and just actually believe when I say things are gonna be okay, be like, fuck yes, they are gonna be okay. And then to have that taken away was so hard.
Yeah, I think it was in some ways emotionally harder, you know, because than other phases of this, pandemic, because we had made it and we had this moment of euphoria and then it was just cut short and you kind of felt like, wait, no, that can't possibly have been it, and I got really worried about our team of Brightlings because this was like, this was not what we needed in August of this year. It was like we'd just come out, we were having this like great growth, and then all of a sudden it's like, bleh. And thankfully we haven't really seen a huge impact. We saw some variability in August, but September's been great and October's been great. But that was so difficult. And I think like for me personally, what we did is during that window, we went to Egypt, which was empty. When we went with our kids and it was 120 degrees. There was literally no one there. And we were in this alternate universe for a week together. And it had been because I had said to Kevin, if we ever get out of this, where would you like to go? And he was like, I want to go down the Nile. And so I was like, okay, let's do it. And if it had happened a week later, we probably would have canceled the trip. And we had this one shot and we took it and we would like roll up on these temples and tombs and literally be the only people there.
Wow.
It was incredible. And so that was such a gift and such a crazy experience. But then we got home and it was just like Delta.
Yeah.
I
only have a few more questions and that means it's almost your turn. So for audience members, it's time for you to think of your questions. How do you think the role or the job of an event producer has changed?
Well, I think that I know that event producer is one of the most anxiety and ridden and stressful jobs. Literally, it's like number 4 behind all the life-saving jobs.
Or like oil rig worker?
No, like police officer, ambulance driver, fireman, Manny.
Those are
Manny's number 4. And
you see all this white hair.
yeah, and I think it's because it's your job to
Oh my God.
Hi, friends.
Do you want to come inside?
Come on in.
Come inside. The door's over there. I don't know who they are, but come
There's
inside.
so many kids. I love it. We're about to get like.
Can we make sure
friends.
is the front door open? It is, right? Yeah. Let's have all these random children
Yeah.
inside.
So speaking of,
They've never seen this before, these children, people together.
Oh. What are they all doing?
oh my God, there's so much
Why are they?
pressure.
They're like, why aren't they 6 feet apart?
What are we gonna say now? We have to sound smart.
They don't understand.
Well, but this is a good point. So all of a sudden you go from entertainer, live experience creator, content creator, community organizer, and safety officer. I mean, I think that whole point of helping people feel safe and secure and at ease has weighed heavily on creators. And, I think this is a period of time where, we'll see some really strong things emerge from it, but it's what a traumatic time for people whose livelihood is around getting people together and having this moment. And you know when you've created something great, when it's not great. And this added a whole nother dimension of risk and stress.
I mean, you want to have people be at ease for an event, right? Like if you had asked an event producer before the pandemic, like recipe for best event, it's like, be yourself, be at ease, lose yourself in the moment.
Yeah.
And like having to ask people for the vaccine cards, certainly masks, like everyone worried about if they're gonna get a communicable disease, like that's not a recipe for a chill. You know what I mean?
Right. And also I think
one's
that's not a recipe for chill.
No. You're not like, come to my Shabbat dinner, but first let me rapid test you.
Oh
You know?
God. I mean, has everybody kind of had that experience? You're like so excited to get together, and then you all start talking about, oh, when should we take the test? Oh, and then, I don't know. Maybe
I had a
we
birthday.
should
I
go.
was
I
there.
don't-
My
my
friend
kids
had
aren't vaccinated.
she had a
yet.
birthday party recently, my friend Chris, and my job was in drag to basically take everyone up the stairs and rapid test them and then entertain them for 15 minutes.
Oh
so
my
they could go to
God,
the
I have
party.
so many visuals in my head about that. That's incredible. But I will say,
I know.
yeah,
Go
I want
next
that.
time.
It was fun, actually.
Yeah, I feel like you would be great at that. I feel like when I talk to people, when I talk to creators and event organizers who have made it through COVID, they have this real sense of like, I don't know, I feel like, not to sound too hokey, but I feel like I get to live almost this parallel life with someone like you, because we've both seen some shit now, right? And not like we hadn't before this, but you have this sense of confidence if you've made it through this. And what I find remarkable about the Eventbrite community is just that total camaraderie and resilience and that optimism. And so oftentimes I'll get on the phone with a customer just to like get my spirits up, and normally you'd be like, yeah, they're probably gonna tell me what they don't like about the product and stuff. That's great, because I love hearing that stuff, but mostly I'm just there to get a little bit of their spirit and get motivated by that, because you kind of have to be crazy to do what you do.
Yeah, and I remember you would send me some notes of encouragement and love throughout this process, and
Just keep going.
yeah, and it was really inspiring.
That's quite poetic. You're
And
welcome.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you publicly. My last question for you is really just about your vision for the future. Where do you want to take this? Like to continue the war analogy, the war is not over, but you made it. You have, like, we can say you made it through the war, and you remain strong. You are still the CEO, sleeping with the chairman. You know what I mean? You are like running this company, and you're poised as one of the largest ticketing platforms to have a front seat for this new age. And so where do you want to see Eventbrite go, and what is your vision for it?
Well, I mean, it's to build a great company first and foremost. I think so often when you have success in business, you sort of lose yourself and you lose your culture. And that sounds so cliche, but it's so much more true than not. And I've always been really motivated by building a great company that wins and is valuable, but also never loses its heart and can adapt. It doesn't have to be a bug stuck in ember. It can be something that's really, like it evolves and it has, for us, COVID has been this new lease on life. So we are at almost entirely new company. We didn't lose our roots or that ideals and values by which we were founded, and even more so, I think we came back more towards that. But we do have a different outlook on the future, and our vision is bigger. We want to enable anyone to be able to create a successful event, and there's so much that goes into that, so much that we feel like we can bring from the technology side. We can never be the brilliance of what you think of in your head as you think of a great event. We want to do everything else, right? We want to be the sort of I have no sexy term, but we really want to be the operating system for small businesses in a way that we sort of shrink behind the scenes and we allow event creators to really find their brilliance and be able to, you know, magnify that. And if we do that really well, I think that we earn the right to help event goers to find great events. And I think that we earn a seat at the table in this vibrant, you know, ecosystem. And I get really inspired by companies like Etsy, who I think hasn't, like, they brought their background and their ideals forward. They're also a really successful company that's a standalone, independent public company worth tens of billions of dollars and is able to now regenerate and give back. I think that Eventbrite has a path that is even more so, like, the vision's bigger, but I know that we can get through any tough time, and I know that we don't have to lose ourselves to get to that next level. And I think, you know, if I look at Sarah and Megan and Coco in the flesh, you know, these are the people that I get to work with every day. And so, you know, it's not lost on me that this literally is a once in a lifetime opportunity. And so personally, I want to 10x the value of the company. I want there to be at least 2 people who could run the company better than I could, hopefully way more. And I don't want to lose the in-between moments that I found with my girls, because I have two daughters as well. And, you know, I've definitely reclaimed my like time with them through COVID. And so that's my 5-year personal plan.
I'm excited to see it all happen, Julia. I will be here watching. Let's get to some audience questions. All right, raise your hands. Go ahead. You go first. And you don't mind speaking loudly, because if you don't, I'm gonna have to repeat the question for the whole room.
I can project, it's fine. I'm Katie, it's nice to meet you both. Hey everyone. Hi. So having been to the Eventbrite offices, having been to Eventbrite parties before, I know how important the in-person experience and building culture is. And something I've been thinking about deeply these days is how to build culture and how to build camaraderie amongst teams now that we live in this virtual world. And I'm curious to hear how you've approached that.
So I think we are so far from being at the end state of what the future of work will be. I think we're literally in the first inning of a 9-inning journey to figuring out how we'll ultimately work best. It was really difficult for us to leave our offices and leave each other and find each other in the online world. It will be even harder to do a hybrid version of that. And it's one of those things where when you think it can't get harder, it does. And so that's, for me, not to sound like I'm dreading it, but that's the next big challenge is, you know, how do you go from everybody being on somewhat equal footing, because we're all squares on the screen. We started to really develop ways to be more inclusive and, you know, really get everybody's voices into the room. But I worked with colleagues that I had never met in person and worked side by side with them to save the company. And, you know, when we do get together, we're about to get together for the second time since COVID. It's really meaningful. And I have a lot of fun designing the experience. So what we normally would have done pre-COVID is that we would get together for offsites. And I mean, we got so lame that our offsites were in the office. Like, it was just, you know what I mean? It was like, oh no, it was like a really long meeting. And it was awful. And now it's 3 days, 2 nights. There's a great mixture of work and fun. We don't do anything that we could do on Zoom, because why? So we don't do planning. We're not doing functional work. We're doing deep team development work. We're doing deep strategic visioning work. We're pushing each other in ways that we've never pushed each other. We're having fun together. We're actually having fun together. I mean, it's so different than it was before, when we were just like, okay, we have to keep doing this, and we took for granted being together. So I do think, if my experience of, you know, one is any indication of what it's going to be like, I'm actually looking forward to it. I'm not dreading it because I think in-person connections and in-person experiences are just going to be that much more valuable. But they'll be thoughtfully curated, and the right ways of gathering, I think, will unlock a lot of human potential that we're not getting today, as we're just like in this monotonous, virtual world.
Right, we had a question right over there, and then we'll try to go around the horn. We have about like less than 10 minutes though, so let's try to get quick.
Sure. Hi, Julia. I heard you speak at TIE years ago about building a company and building children. It was a phenomenal talk you gave to TIE Women's Group down in Santa Clara. Very interesting. So my name is Steve. I have a question about, as we move forward with events and building community, there are other tools these days like Bevy, Hopin. Bevy started by Derek Anderson, who you probably know very well, from Startup Grind, and Hopin, and they're doing sort of events, they're doing ticketing, and they're doing community, and doing sort of offline and online. How do you see that emergence of these two new players in the field in the last 12 to 24 months in terms of where Eventbrite sits in the ecosystem, and maybe you could address that from a strategic perspective?
Great, let's actually get another question too, and then we'll be able to answer two at the same time. Go ahead. Yeah.
Wow, you're really making me work. Okay.
Hi, Julia, Josh, thanks for being here. So my question is about measuring community. So I know I'm sure on your Tableau dashboards, you've got your financials, ticketing info, all these stats, but I'm curious how you think about really measuring community and those connections and all those bonds that are forged at the events that you support.
Awesome. So on the kind of the landscape front, I mean, so much has shifted, and we see players coming into our space every day, right? And certainly the online platforms that were able to fulfill the need that especially enterprise customers had, large conferences that, were not going to happen and the budget was still there. I think that that's a wonderful place that, is a really vibrant ground for business growth. It's not our place. Our place is between, I would say, that level of enterprise conference and a backyard barbecue, right? We're in that middle fatty layer of what we care about is not so much the size of the event, but how frequent the creator is using Eventbrite, because that's the most valuable segment for us. And so what we did in that first month of COVID is that we honed in on what makes Eventbrite unique. Where are we the best? And it's in a self sign-on audience that 90% of them can come to Eventbrite organically and through word of mouth. It's building a self-serve product. And I don't say that lightly. I think we have a lot of work to do to continue to scale our self-serve capabilities. And it's by helping them get to a bigger audience. It's helping them extend their reach. And so what I try to do is it's like hold that middle space of being aware of what's happening and knowing that I fully expect competition to get more fierce as live events start to come back in mass. I mean, this is a very attractive market, but also focus on what we do best and not kind of keep looking over my shoulder. But I'd be remiss not to say, Deep, that there were a couple times when I was looking at my stock price and I was looking at Hopin's latest private round and feeling sorry for myself. But that's just a human experience. Now on the community front, we don't do enough to measure those connections, frankly. I mean, we look at where a consumer comes from, how often are they buying tickets on Eventbrite, and if they opt in, we serve them up recommendations to things that we think that they'd like to do. We have such a open field of opportunity in terms of helping, especially people who are what I would call ralliers, who rally other people to go to great events, to empower them with tools to help that make that easier as well as more delightful, and then to keep the connection going. And we just haven't only played in that space. We've actually incubated it with an app called Rally. But we haven't invested as much in that space as I would like to, and we plan to.
Okay, let's see if we can get one more. There was a question over here. Last one. Sorry, I promised Julia I'd have her out by 7. It is 7, so last question.
Make it quick. I run a small boutique ticketing platform. I'm not even close to being a competitor of yours, but we're working on it.
Nice.
Hey,
That's
all
you
right.
coming.
And we kind of have a strategy where we kind of have, you know, like account managers for all our clients, because it's still small enough to be able to do that.
Yeah.
The question I have is, how do you traverse what your business ethics and morals are in your company to not influence? I mean, where does the line come where how much you influence your own clients as far as how you want to, you know, if they're doing something not necessarily unethical or,
I
you know,
totally
whatever,
know what you're talking about.
where does that come in, and how much do you, you know, get in contact with them about those things, or just exchange your thoughts about business ethics or morals or whatever, you know, what you value in your company, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, we had a period of time where we had a really big account management practice, and we, a lot of that came through an acquisition, and it was a interesting glimpse into the world of that, where, you know, the account manager is effectively an extension of that customer's team. And so it's a tricky balance, and we had to actually get to the point of breaking up with a couple of customers because the practice wasn't in line with our values. And I think you have to hold that line for your own employees, because they're not going to. The people that you're hiring to be an account manager inherently love to help and love to serve. They're like type 2 Enneagrams, one of those, which is the helper type. And so therefore, like, they're gonna do whatever it takes to help the customer. And yet, like, your job is to look out for them. And so I really think it's being brave enough to, you know, be willing to lose the business. That speaks volumes, really. I mean, when we've had to do that, I definitely got the feedback from our customer or from our employees that they were so grateful that we stood for something. And it's also incredibly difficult when you have, you know, live events. I mean, these are, you know, this isn't just like a chat room.
I want to have everyone give a big round of applause for Julia Hartz. A couple very, very quick plugs. 2 events I want to put on your radar. Like I said, we're having a political carnival on Saturday, next Saturday, Blue in 22. We also have an event right after this on faith, nationalism, and politics. It's a book talk with David Elcott. It's going to be really, really incredible. Precious Green is leading that interview. And the other event I wanted to pitch to you is on November 11th, Veterans Day, which is 2 weeks from today. We're going to be doing a big fundraiser for Afghan refugee resettlement. We're raising money for JCFS East Bay's resettlement work and the Afghan Coalition. There'll be Afghan food and dance and art and music, and all the money we raise that night is going to go directly to these organizations. And so if you're interested in a way to give back to that, it'll be on November 11th. And the final thing is, if you would like to support the work that we are doing here at Manny's, you can become a Manny's sponsor. It's $36 or more a month, and it directly goes to helping us keep this thing going. Brian, you became a sponsor after the last event 2 days ago. So be like Brian, become a sponsor.
Be like Brian.
Be like Brian, support us. And finally, if you are an event producer, if you're putting on events, if you've never done an event before, please use Eventbrite. I've been using it since day one, and it has made my whole business run so much smoother. And I really loved this product. So I'm a big believer. I love Eventbrite. I'm forever Eventbrite. And with that, have a good evening, everyone. Thank you.